Hi everyone and welcome back to another Mixed Media Tuesday. Today I will be sharing another art journal page and I'm working on my little 6x6 watercolor journal. This is just a journal that I created myself and then I will be following the same steps as I did for the previous 2 pages in this little journal. Just to prove a point that by using whatever you have at home and following the same techniques, you can come up with different pages. Again, I will be starting with rice paper, and everything I'm using today comes from the Forest collection. This is rice paper from Forest collection. It is a very old collection, you may already have it, but it is also available online. Again, remember, use what you have at home. Instead of rice paper, as I mentioned in the previous videos, you can go with napkins, you can go with tissue paper, you can even go with magazine cutouts or pattern paper cutouts. I'm using my scissors to cut out random rectangles and I chose 2 rice papers, one with that green hue and the other one with an ivory brownish one, so that I can mix and match them and create a background that looks more interesting. Both of those last pages that I shared with you got lots of love, so I thought it would be fun to continue in the same style. And as I follow the same steps, I can also explain what I'm doing, and at the same time I can answer some of the questions that I got in the previous videos. So again, I'm sticking everything down with my rice paper glue. You can use any matte medium, you can use any mixed media glue that you have to apply first the glue, then stick the rice paper on top and cover it up to make sure that you seal it down. Now, many people ask me why I like the rice paper glue. It is very easy to spread, as you can see with my brush. It doesn't smell at all, it dries really quickly and it dries completely matte on top when I'm sealing the rice paper. So you cannot see any shine, and that's probably why I absolutely love it so much. So I'm going to create the background, making sure that I leave the border just like I did with the previous pages. Again, for this little journal I am going to follow the same style. I will share other styles of course, but I am going to choose a journal. Just thought it would be fun to make a consistent one, and it will be awesome when it's finished to just do one of those flip through videos where you can see the same style in all the pages, but all of them will look so different. So now I'm happy with how the background looks. I'm going to make sure that this is completely dry, and then let's move on to the next step. So this is the step where we use white paint to whitewash the background to make it look more like a background and not as vibrant as it is. And there are many different ways to do this step. You can definitely dilute white paint with water and just apply a wash of color over the background. It's going to make it look more faded, the colors are not going to be very vibrant. Or you can use a spatula to apply some white here and there, or like I did here, just use a very stiff brush so you can see the brush strokes. And since I have some white paint left over, I'm going to dilute it with water and just add some white splatters. Now this is completely optional. I know that I will be adding more splatters at the end, since this is one of the steps that I cannot omit. But anyway, I didn't want that extra white paint to go to waste. Between the steps I always use my heat gun just to make sure that everything is dry and I can go on to the next layer. Now by the way, at this stage I have no idea what I'm going to stick on top as a focal point, but I'm sure I will find something. So here is the step where I do my stamping. Just use any stamp that you have. I'm using one from my latest background stamp set. And I'm just going to stamp with permanent ink in different parts of the background. I'm not trying to get the perfect impression. That's why I'm not even using a stamping block. And I will stamp on the edges, making sure that it goes all the way to the white part, to the white border of the page, kind of brings everything together. This step dries really instantly, so there is no need to use a heat gun. And of course for this step you can definitely choose to go with a different color of ink. For example, if you don't want to have such a vibrant marking on your background, you can definitely go with dark brown or with dark green that matches the color of the background. Next step, using some paste over stencil. This is a fun way to apply some texture, and I decided to use this old circle stencil that I designed a couple of years ago, I believe. I don't think it is still available, but again, use what you have. That's what I'm doing here, using an old collection with old supplies. Also notice that my stencil is stained, however it is clean, so don't worry too much about that. It is a very loved stencil that I keep on using again and again. I am using volume paste. It is a nice thick paste, and don't be afraid to move around and rotate your stencil to make sure that you get the markings wherever you want to have them. And at this stage I'm super happy with how the background looks at the moment. I love that vibe of fall with the ivory and the greens, and I can leave that aside to dry and start thinking about the focal points. Now I do have those paper cutouts from the forest collection, and you can definitely fuzzy cut your images and stick them on top to do your collage. I will be using those because they are pre-cut for me and I don't have to do any job at all. And you have already seen me using this little branch. If you have seen one of my short videos, I will bring it for you so you can see it. This is where I used that branch with the bird, again from the same collection. Now, one thing that I need to keep in mind as I choose which images I'm going to use is that I want them to pop on top of my background. I do have greens and ivories on my background, so I will stay away from green. So after auditioning some of the elements and trying to find a really quick and simple composition, as I don't want to overcomplicate things for these pages in this journal, it is time to stick everything down. Again, I'm using my rice paper glue. Although it says that it is for a rice paper, it does work great for this type of paper. So I wouldn't use that glue for thicker elements, but for weight of a pattern paper page, they are perfect. I am sticking everything down to create my composition, and again, I'm sealing all the images with this glue so that I am going to turn them into being non-porous. This is very important for the next step of the shading with my markers. Also notice that it looks milky at the moment. It is going to dry completely clear and matte. And now it's time for my favorite technique using the Pitt markers by Faber-Castell. I am going to choose some of them and do the shadowing. I have used this technique many times in my videos, but you seem to love it a lot, so I don't know if I repeat myself, but I'm going to explain again what I'm doing here. I always try to choose a slightly darker marker than the color that is already in the paper. I apply a little bit of ink from the marker on my image, and then with my finger I smudge it before it dries. Remember, if this one dries, it is permanent. You will not be able to move it around. So just move quickly. You do have a few seconds. You can see how these markers are semi-transparent and they don't cover up the design underneath. So they are not like acrylic markers. However, they do add color that you can layer, and it does bring those images into life. You see the image was very faded, now it kind of pops even more. These are great because you can add the shadows wherever you want them, you can tint the images, and the fun part is that they help the images pop against each other and against the background. One very important thing that you need to keep in mind is that the matte glue that you have underneath should be completely dry before you touch it with your markers. Otherwise, glue is going to stick on the tip of your marker, and you don't want to do that. These are expensive markers that they can last you for years. I use them for ages and they never dry on me, just because I use just a touch of this marker on my journals. So I'm just adding extra darker shadows with the dark brown here. And you can see how it helps that squirrel pop. Just think of where those shadows or the darker areas would be and smudge a little bit of that ink there. I'm also going to add a little bit at the bottom where the squirrel touches those leaves. And then let's switch to a few more colors and do the leaves. So again, I'm picking a slightly darker color of marker than what is underneath, which is going to allow me to create shadows to bring that color more into life. And finally, let's do the last colored leaves. Sometimes I just go randomly and I have no idea which would work, but look, this did work great, although the barrel looks like it was a paler color. It ended up being the perfect shade for this leaf. So you see everything comes to life. And now once that ink is dry, it's time to do the doodling. For that I'm using a very fine black marker. And you can see by following the same steps one after another and just switching colors and supplies, I can come up with an art journal from pretty much anything. Any collection you give me, I can follow the same steps, and you can do it too. Trust me, these steps are not about having new products, and if you are a beginner in art journaling, these are great steps to follow. We can build up as we go with new techniques and more fun ideas. But having a little journal where you always follow the same steps for the pages is a great way to get you started. Because after all, you don't need inspiration, you just go one step at a time without thinking. Now I'm switching to my white gel pen and I'm just going to add some highlights here and there. Now this is a completely random process. I don't have a specific way I'm doing it, just sketchy lines here and there. And remember that the gel pen is very forgiving. You see, I can use my finger and erase what is there before it dries. This is going to add a whimsical look with those touch of white here and there. Again, all those steps are what I like to do, and I'm showing you how I do my art journals. You can completely omit steps if you don't like them. So just look at those videos as a starting point of inspiration, and along the way I'm sure you will find your very own style. In my art journals I always like to add quotes. Many different ways to add quotes, like stamp them, you can print them out, you can definitely write your quote. I do have this sticker book by Tim Holtz. Again, I have this for ages and they just keep on going for me. So I'm choosing a few phrases that I'm going to stick down. I did use my black marker to outline them. This helps them pop even more. And finally, I'm going to add some white splatters. It's a thing that I absolutely love doing, and believe it or not, I get a lot of questions for that. So you can dilute water with acrylic paint or with primer or gesso, or you can even use one of those calligraphy inks that they are liquid and they are ready to go. These stay nice and vibrant on top of other colors, and I find that they kind of they don't mix with what is underneath. So here I'm just using one of those Winsor & Newton ones. I am going to cover up the face of the squirrel. I don't want to have any funny splatters on his face. And I'm using a very thin brush so that I can kind of control where those splatters fall. And I forgot to show you another step that I did in the previous page as well. So if you want to bring all those elements together, you can do a little bit of stamping, again by using the same stamp that you used on the background. I'm not going to do it, to overdo it over those cutout elements. So here you see I'm just making sure that those splatters are completely dry, and I'm just going to do it over some areas of those leaves. I don't want to have any stamping on the squirrel, but it is definitely an option. So that is the final step, that completes my art journal for today. I hope that you had fun, that you got inspired. All the supplies that I used are listed down below in the description. Thank you all so much for joining me today. Don't forget to like the video and leave me a comment, and I'll see you all next time.